Are we all good?
I think we're all
Yeah.
good. I'll do the intro. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the We Know Ball podcast. It's been a while. We haven't talked about anything since we got our ass kicked by the Mavs. But we got a special guest on today, Yusuf, Thunder Film Room. What's up, man? Thanks for coming back on.
What's up, guys? I appreciate y'all having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you
I'm
coming back
excited.
on.
Quick reactions, Yosef. Your reaction when the Thunder got the second pick.
Oh, dude, I was jumping around my house. Like, I gave my mom the biggest high five that, like, I could have popped her shoulder out of place. Like, she was, like, holding her hand for 5 minutes. I was really, like, the second because statistically we had the highest chance of getting 6. So when I saw it wasn't 6, I was like, okay. Then it wasn't 5. And then I was just holding my breath that it's not 4 because I was honestly just happy with any top 3 pick. And then after that, it was just started jumping around, running throughout the house. It was a pretty good week.
I know we're a little behind on this whole draft lottery thing because that was like a week ago at this point. We did take a little break from recording for a while there, but for anyone who doesn't know, the Orlando Magic did end up with the first pick, which I think is really good for the league, in my opinion. I'm really glad that
Yeah.
it went to like a small market team, I guess I should say.
Isn't
Orlando's
this?
kind of a small market, right?
Yeah.
I would say so, yeah.
I
But
would
isn't
say.
this their like fifth or sixth first overall pick in the last like 20 years?
Something like that. I mean, they had Shaq, they had Dwight, uh, they had Penny
I
Hardaway.
was gonna say Penny. Um, there was another one.
I could not tell you. That's all
I
I
saw a
got.
post
Up
about
until,
it, but I wasn't looking too into it. But
yeah, but yeah, draft lottery. But the one we'll talk a little more about that later. The big topic that I want to cover first is is the one that all of Suns Twitter has been talking about ever since Game 7, and that is what the hell are the Suns going to do with Deandre Ayton? It's a huge topic, man, and everybody has a different opinion about it.
yeah,
Everybody.
it's it's so hard to me. I don't even know. I don't know. After all this news has came out with everything that's happened, it's I've definitely my opinion has been swayed over a little bit about keeping him. I don't know.
So I want to hear from Yosef about like what from the outside perspective, like what does this look like to you? Like do the Suns just look like a shit show to you guys right now? Like
It's funny. I was literally about to say it looks like a shit show. Cause like I understand not wanting to pay him the max, especially like how everything played out this past year. Like I'm a big believer in like if you're contending for a championship, then like you have to overpay. And like people are gonna be clamoring to pay him. And like as of right now, I don't see a clear path that like a sign and trade makes them better or even maybe maintains that level. Like it would have to be like, I mean, the one with Indiana that I saw a few weeks ago, like for Miles Turner, is like interesting in my opinion because like you can probably get a second guy there. But like the DA question marks are also like kind of worrisome. Like I saw someone from I think it was called the Timeline podcast. I
Yeah,
forgot which one of them tweeted. They're like, if he didn't have his like gaming laptop, he'd be like
I
one of the
think that was
top sitters
Sam.
in the league.
I think that was Sam.
And it's like it's an interesting thing because like you see CP at his age right now, and it's like if you don't get the quality return on a DA sign and trade, like you're kind of almost like I don't want to say closing your championship window, but like you're very much flirting with that line. And it's just one of those things like it's so hard because like 3 months ago you're like this isn't even a question, right? So it's also like how much value do you place on this like that pretty much those 5 bad games that happened uh against the Mavs. I mean, it wasn't even the first round wasn't the prettiest, but like New Orleans was a pretty decent matchup.
Right.
It's like one of those things where like if you run the simulation 100 times, this is probably the worst possible outcome.
honestly.
So it's just like it's really just like how much value are you going to place on this, and what are the offers looking like? Because I think if they just like let him walk, like don't match an offer sheet, like that would be the most asinine thing I think I would have seen in the past few years.
That'd be the worst.
I genuinely
Yeah.
don't think that's gonna happen. I think that was it Woj who was on ESPN or Sports Center, and he was like, Phoenix is prepared to match an offer, but they're something like then started talking about the sign and trade thing. So I don't think James Jones is dumb enough to not
No,
match
there's
it
no
and at least
chance.
trade
Yeah.
him. But you never know.
Well, there I saw some reports that he wasn't happy, and my thing is like obviously I want to bring him back. You know, he's like top 7 center or whatever. But it's like if he doesn't want to play here, I don't want to keep him. You know what I mean? I don't want to force him to play here if he doesn't want to. So that at that point, you do the sign and trade. I don't think they'll let him walk. That just seems a little unreasonable.
I and an opinion like, how do I say this without like, I'd give up Chris Paul before I traded DeAndre Ayton personally.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
Yeah.
Which I feel like if you put that out on Twitter, people would come for your head. Like the CP3 homers would absolutely kill you, and they'd be like, "Oh, you never went to the like, bro." Chris Paul, man, they're going to be 38 years old next playoffs. He's just not. He's not a second option anymore. He's not. He's just not. Like,
Yeah.
I think that year in OKC was probably his last season being like elite. I would like last season I'd say he was like elite. Like he was probably like top 5 point guard last season. But this season, during the season, yes, he was a fantastic, but he's really started to show his age. And like you said,
Mhm.
Joseph, I don't know how much stock you want to put into just like 5 games, but the unfortunate reality is those were the last 5 games, and those were the 5 most important games of our season, it turns out. So, and nobody showed up. Not a single person on the team showed up for the 5
No,
most important games.
I agree, and like I love Monty Williams, but like I don't think he showed up either. Like I think Jason Kidd
Mhm.
outcoached him,
Yeah.
and like I know a
Oh,
lot
for
of people
sure.
kept talking about like this is why you shouldn't have stood pat during the trade deadline. You should have traded for Eric Gordon, blah 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 blah. But like I don't even know if that would have helped in the way those
No.
last 5 games played out. Like the way Dallas was switching, they were late blitzing on CP. They completely took away the mid range, didn't let him like snake the pick and roll for that elbow jumper. I saw a stat on Twitter that was like in those last 5 games, CP got 9 mid range shots at the elbow,
That's insane.
which is like
It's
that
crazy.
that's mind blowing. And like JJ Redick was talking about on ESPN. And I don't know how true this is because I haven't like went and looked back at the games. But like the Suns do have the worst shot portfolio in the league. Like they're bottom 5 and or bottom 10 in shots at the rim, and they're bottom 10 at 3-pointers attempted. Which like don't get me wrong, like that was the same thing with the CP OKC year where like they loved the mid range and they forced teams to pay when they were shooting it. But like the second the team takes away the mid range, like you have to be able to adapt,
Yep.
and they just couldn't do that. Which is kind of the worrisome part, especially with CP. Like they were forcing him left, and like he just really like that was the first time I've ever watched him. I'm like, whoa, he really just there's nothing he can do. Like they have him in jail, and it's just one of those things that just like I tweeted about this, and like I know when I was on last time I told you guys like I was rooting for the Suns this year. Like I have to watch the goddamn Golden State Warriors make the finals because they wanted to just like I was, but there was a part of me that like the Suns in the playoffs, I feel like there was a level of like arrogance that reached the team. Like, and
I feel like
I'm a big person that like arrogance is just it's gonna lead to failure every time. It's just one of those things where like I tweeted, I said like they were giving me like the rich private school vibe, and it's just one of those things where it's like you can't get like that because the second like you give anyone else bulletin board material or anything like that, they're gonna come for your head, and I think that's exactly especially what happened in the Maverick series.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's like the biggest difference that I've noticed with the Suns this playoffs and last year's playoffs was that chip on their shoulder, that like competitive fire to like prove themselves. That they had that last season, and I'll give you guys the injuries. Like fine, last season there were injuries, whatever. It happens. It doesn't change the fact that the Suns still just were trying harder last season. And I think it was better for us as fans too because we went from missing the playoffs by a game in the bubble to the 2 seed in a season, which I don't know how many times that's happened in like NBA history. Usually you go from like you miss the playoffs, then you're like a 7 seed and then you ascend. But it was crazy because we went into last year's playoffs not knowing like what to expect. We were like, okay, like last season was kind of our like, oh, we're just happy to be here.
Right. I thought we were gonna lose to the Lakers.
I was not going to be upset if we lost to the
Yeah.
Lakers. I was like, damn, well, we got LeBron first round. I mean, shit. If we lose to LeBron, like they just won a chip. Like that happens.
And now
But
during
then
this era, our expectation will always be to go back to the finals.
yeah,
Which
that's
sucks.
that was the
Which
downside
sucks.
cuz
I hate that.
you beat LeBron in the first round. You sweep the Nuggets in the second round. You win the Western Conference Finals, you go to the finals and that becomes the expectation. People thought, I guarantee you, and I don't know if anyone will admit to this now, but I guarantee you, after we beat the Pelicans in 6, I promise you, everybody thought we were going to sweep the Mavs. Everyone was
Yeah.
like, oh, it's going to be exactly the same as last year. No. And then that's where that entitlement comes from. And then, we saw the disaster struck.
Yeah.
Expectations are the worst.
Mm-hmm.
That's what like I try to tell Thunder fans, like the ones that were like upset after we traded CP after that playoff run. It's like that one season was fun because we came in with no expectations. The second you add expectations to everything, it's not enjoyable. Like the playoffs, when there's expectations, is the most miserable thing in the world. Like the last 2 years, I've just watched the playoffs and I'm just like, God, I'm so stress free. Like so
Yes.
whenever you like having which don't get me wrong, like it's exciting to have expectations, but it's stressful and it's also can create like a very toxic environment amongst fans. And I think we've seen that. Like I'm not gonna say any names, but there's like been a few Suns fans that'll just pop up on my TL.
We
I think
name
it's because
drop
like
all
I'll
the
see one of
time.
you.
Don't worry.
Yeah, you can name drop. It's okay, man.
I don't know his like full name. I think it's like Leezus or
Oh,
Andrew
something like that.
Andrew.
Leezus.
Dog.
Uh,
His tweets will just pop up on my TL, and I'm just like, God,
So,
what? You
about
and me must be
him-
watching 2 different basketball games.
About
like,
him, I was on that same boat where I was like, there was a point in time where I was like so annoyed by what he would say. But we had Queese on the episode, and he's just a big troll, I guess, is what Andrew is. He's just he trolls, like makes troll tweets on purpose to get under people's skin. So once I realized that, I was just like, I just kind of ignored it. But yeah, he's a big troll.
it gets interaction, so
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hate on the hustle.
Yeah. One thing
Yeah,
I
I
wanted to
mean-
talk about, because I tweeted this the other day, and I think you replied to it, Isaac, about we gotta start talking about Monty, about if he's a
Oh, yeah.
championship coach. Because if we just look back at these last 2 playoffs, he got outcoached by Tyronn Lue against the Clippers, got outcoached against Mike Budenholzer, who's a
Mike Budenholzer,
terrible
and then also
coach.
Willie
Oh
Green.
my God, he got out coached by Budenholzer, bro.
Who's a
Like that should have
terrible
been our
coach.
first. That should have been our first red flag.
Right. Then we go against, he gets outcoached by his old assistant coach, Willie Green, and then just got outcoached by Jason Kidd. 4 straight playoff series, if you think about it.
I mean,
He just doesn't know how to make adjustments. That's the biggest. He's a great guy, great players coach, but when it comes to like the X's and O's, he's not too great at it.
I almost feel like Monty would be better off as an assistant coach.
Honestly.
Yeah.
But
And-
like it's like it worked. Oh, something happened to TFR. Oh, he's back.
There he goes.
Picked me out for some reason.
Yeah, I remember you said it's storming there, so it's all right.
So the reason that not making adjustments worked for Mike Budenholzer, or works, because he has Giannis on his team. Like,
Giannis.
Yeah.
we don't have that. You have to make
And he has
adjustments.
he had playoff Middleton, bro.
Right.
I
And
have
like,
Middleton.
you can't not just rely. We can't just like the whole campaign thing where he let campaign. It took him till what, game 4 of.
Yeah.
When did he stop? When did he stop playing campaign?
Was it in the Pelican series? I think it was like
It had to have been game 6 then, if anything.
I'm
I
gonna
thought it was in
look.
the Maverick series.
I was gonna
I'm
say
gonna look through.
game 3 or 4 of the Maverick series is when.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I could have
gonna.
sworn it was the Mav series, but
I'm
maybe I'm
gonna.
thinking wrong.
I'm looking through his game log. I mean, okay, he played. He stopped getting minutes in Game 5 of the Mav series. That is
Okay.
tragic, dude.
So he just had what 10 straight games of shitty play.
Yeah.
At that point, you
Yeah,
gotta
10,
and like ride
10
on people
games.
like because Landry Shamet wasn't having terrible playoffs. Like it wasn't terrible like that. He actually that's why he got minutes after campaign stopped playing or like start playing Aaron Holiday
Yeah,
to-
I can't believe Aaron Holiday didn't play a single minute until
or
like garbage time.
Torrey Craig. Like he could have been a body on Luca or something. Just something. We needed
Craig,
something.
I
Yeah.
was fine with. I was cool with Craig not playing. He was a
But
negative
we needed
on
to
both
switch
sides.
something up. We needed to switch something up.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
I
we started trying to double team Luca and help on Luca every time and just leave everybody open, which is just like you're not gonna win against a team that shoots from 3 like that.
yeah, I don't know why we went away from that defensive scheme that worked so well in the first 2 games. But we let's move on from this Mav series. We've already had every conversation that you can possibly have about this series. I wanna shift focus and kind of get back to DA. Um, my obviously the ideal scenario for DA is that the Suns keep him and find a trade somewhere else for another shot creator. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to happen. I
Yeah.
think DA is pretty much as good as gone. There's like less. I think there's probably like a 5% chance he plays for the Suns next season.
Right.
So ideally, I would love Siakam trade
Yeah, I
myself. I
really
think
like that. The
Yeah.
Siakam
I
trade
think
is
I kind of think you could get it done. I'm not gonna like throw out a package or anything, but I think there's something there that you could do.
it fits their
Um,
timeline too. It just fits their oldest player would be Fred Van Vliet
Van Vliet,
and
yeah,
is
And
Thaddeus
just
Young now on there?
Thad Young.
But he
I
doesn't.
think isn't he a free agent this year? I don't know.
I have no clue. I think he went to Toronto. But like either way,
Yeah,
when
he is on Toronto, but
Fred Van Vliet is 27 and that's your oldest player.
and it just fits their roster
Yeah.
construction because they have like so many forwards, and now you have OG and Scotty, and I think Ayton would fit right in there.
Yeah. But that's just Joseph. I mean, is that crazy to think? I mean, I know my fans tend to overvalue some of their assets in trades and undervalue other players. So, I mean, is that like, are we crazy here, or do you think that's something that's doable?
I don't want to say crazy, but I don't think it's doable. Like Siakam had a borderline All NBA season this past year, and if Raptor fans were listening to this pod, guys, they might come from that fan base that's a whole nother discussion. But it's difficult, especially in sign and trade scenarios. You rarely get a player that's just as good back, but then especially super rarely do you get a better player back.
Yeah.
So I don't think it happens. Like I think because I did see a report that like Toronto may be interested. Like I think Toronto's looking at it as like how can we get him without giving up Siakam
Mhm.
to pair those two. Which then in that sense it makes no sense for Phoenix.
Right.
And that's why I just think like as you guys said like you think he's good as gone. I do too. It's like it's a crappy situation. And I think that's why you always try to keep everything like keep it as far away possible as from becoming toxic, and like that's what's clearly like looks like it's happened with what his agent released, and then like Monty saying they haven't talked after the game, and Da never, I don't think he did his exit interviews, and like everything. And like don't get me wrong, we've seen crazy stuff happen where like relationships can get fixed, and like if the relationship is good between like the players and Ayton, like maybe they can convince him to come back, because obviously at the end of the day you guys said it. I agree with you. Like, you're not just gonna let him walk because you don't want to match something. Like, Sarver's in this position where, like, if he did a match and just lost him for nothing, like, you're losing. I think at that point you're losing the fan base. Because while yes you're overpaying, like you don't let talent walk for free, and that's a very 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 good talent and a young talent.
Especially one that
So
you
it's just one
use
of
the
those
first pick on.
exactly one that you use the first pick on and an all-time great you passed up on. And like in
Who
hindsight,
just
like
beat
at
you?
the time, yeah. So it's just like when you consider all those things in there, and like that's obviously very much nitpicking. Like Ayton's a good player. It's not like they picked Marvin Bagley or anything, but like it's you just can't let a talent like that, especially a first round pick, just walk. Especially after you just pretty much wasted a top 10 pick or top 11 pick on Jalen Smith. What 2 years ago now?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So it's just
Yeah.
I think the most
they're in it.
realistic. Oh, go ahead.
Go on. I was just saying they're in a tough spot because, as you said, like with the CP3 not being the second option, and like you, if you're not gonna have the best player in the series, you need to have like a top three really good players. And like I'm a big Book believer, but like we just saw how good Luca is, because like how much better he was than anyone else on the court in this past series. And like anytime the opposing team has the better player, it automatically gives them a really good chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the
So
most realistic one that we saw was like the Pacers one. Obviously, like you downgrade with Miles Turner, and then whatever else we get, sixth pick. I saw some people saying Chris Duarte. I don't think they would. I don't think they would trade Chris Duarte to us because they just drafted him. Uh, there's
I've seen
no
a
really
lot
like
of
realistic options.
I've seen a lot of Buddy Hield with
Yeah, Buddy
Miles Turner.
Hield.
is
Yeah,
he on the
but it's like
Pacers now?
Yeah.
yeah,
See that I think that'd be a good trade.
That'd probably be
yeah.
fine. And here's my thing. And Suns fans are some of the most reactionary fans I've ever seen. Like they take, especially on Twitter, man. And no, this is not like I love my Suns fans out there. Like I love the Suns community, but they take everything at face value. They read it and then they don't think about it at all. They just see it and they're like, this is what's happening. So they see like, oh, the Pacers will trade the sixth pick for DeAndre Ayton. And then they're just immediately the thought is like, oh, why are we going to trade DeAndre Ayton for a random draft prospect that we don't know if it will pan out? The Suns, if they trade for the sixth pick, they're not using the pick. They're flipping that pick immediately to trade for someone else.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason that the Suns draft a player with the sixth overall pick with the roster that they have. If they plan on keeping Chris Paul, especially, that would be like that doesn't fit at all. You'd have to get lucky and draft someone who can contribute immediately, which means you have to draft an older player, which is not worth using the sixth pick on. So I think if that does happen, I would love the Turner and pick six return because you can obviously Turner's not the best rebounder, but he's still a very good player. He can stretch the floor. He's one of the best shot blockers in the league. So you replace DA with at least like a serviceable center. Is he top 10? Is that fair? I really don't know.
I wouldn't say. I would say top 15 easily. I don't know about top 10.
But I mean, yeah, the
Yeah, I'd
point
say
is that
top
he's
15.
he's actually like a good center.
But he's
It's not like we're
good is the
replacing him
point.
with
He's not
JaVale.
like the worst thing. It's not. Yeah, exactly. It's like my thing with trading DA is just making sure that JaVale McGee is not our starting center.
Yeah.
But then you just flip that sixth pick, and the Suns have so many tradable contracts. You have Jay Crowder's expiring. You have a Shamit extension who's going to kick in. I don't know what kind of value Shamit has. I don't think anyone takes him. I don't think James Jones is even going to trade him. Actually, he loves Shamit.
Campaign.
I think Campaign might be gone.
Campaign,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can the Suns can find some package and trade some of these players, or at least try to get people who can contribute more. I'm not going to throw any names out there because I don't really
Just
want
shot
fan
creating.
bases coming for me, but uh
We just need shot creating. That's it. That's my main
yeah,
concern.
literally just another shot creator that's like my biggest thing.
We need less 3-and-D players, more shot creators.
Yeah, the
Which
3
is
and D plan like works as long as they're not completely shutting down Chris Paul and Devin Booker, which is
Yeah.
what Dallas did. Which is
It works if you have Giannis or KD or something.
yeah.
Or Luca. Like
Yeah,
or
imagine
Luka.
if Luca
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
Mikal and Cameron on the wings. Like that
Yeah.
would be
If Luca had Mikal and Cam Johnson, bro, oh my gosh. If you just switch, like no cap, if you take away Chris Paul and Devin Booker from the Suns and just have Luca as point and some random shooting guard, that team's probably, and the rest of the roster is the same. That team's probably insane.
Yeah.
They're winning the West. in my book.
But yeah, it's and I think the rude awakening that I don't think a lot of Suns fans have confronted yet is that maybe, just maybe, Devin Booker is not that good. Like, I know we were all pushing for the whole MVP thing, which we got, and I'm thrilled that we got it. Top 10 players probably pushing it at this point.
Yeah.
I'd say like top 15. But if Devin Booker's your best player and your second best player is 37-year-old Chris Paul, that's a 5 seed, bro. 5 seed, second round exit at best. If you run it back with the same team, you're looking at the same result, most likely.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep.
So, I mean, the Suns are just in such a bad spot right now. It's a terrible situation to be in right now. They fumbled it horribly.
One thing
I
that
personally want to move Chris Paul
oh
to
yeah,
a team that like, wants to make like a playoff push or something. And
Yeah,
they need like
Westbrook.
they need
Well,
some veteran
we've seen
they need some veteran
we
help.
saw the Kings talk about that. They said that they wanted to trade the 4th pick for a win now veteran. Is
Yeah,
what
bro, we're
I
gonna
saw.
trade Chris Paul for the 4th pick. I don't think that's happening.
I
They
saw it
have no
was
use for
I
Chris
saw
Paul.
they didn't want to trade De'Aaron Fox last trade deadline. I
I'll
doubt they'll do it
I'll
now.
take Davion Mitchell.
Shoot. I
But
mean, yeah.
I'm still on the boat of what Flex said about the whole superstar thing. I trust Flex. Flex doesn't he hasn't been wrong that often.
Do you know who Flex is, Yosef?
No clue.
So he's he's a Suns like insider. I wouldn't say he's necessarily a reporter, but he's one of those guys that like has inside sources and drops news all the time. He's right about a lot of stuff.
I would say about
He
80% of the time.
Yeah, he was right about Devin Booker coming back from his injury in the first round to play in Game 6 against the Pelicans. That's just like the most recent one. But what Brandon is
Chris Paul
referring
trade.
to, he was right about the Chris Paul trade. What Brandon's referring to is a couple weeks ago, it was like right after Game 7, he said that the Suns have a unique opportunity to trade for a superstar. And he said that it's not like some like Julius Randle type. He means like he said on a podcast, it's like a genuine like league changing like superstar player. I don't know how much like stock I'm putting into that because there has to be a lot of like factors behind the scenes that have to change just for something for that to even be in consideration. So that's not necessarily like I don't want to talk about that too much because it's like not super likely,
All
I'd say.
hypotheticals.
It's very hypothetical right now, and it's just more something to keep in the back of your head.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's like something that happened. But yeah, Flex, he's right like a majority of the time, so that's just something that
That's why
like,
I'm gonna ride on the Flex wave and just keep my hopes up until
Yeah, man, we're getting KD.
we trade for Domantas Sabonis. Then I'll
Yeah. Oh, the thing I'm scared about the most with the Suns is that like because they're known to do this kind of stuff, if they decide to just run it back with like addition of like Terrence Ross or something, and then just be like, okay, we got you a shot creator, and then same result again. That's what I'm scared of.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a very, 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 very shitty situation for the Suns to be in right now, especially for a team that like is calling themselves a contender. So yeah, but let's move on. I'm sure we'll get enough of this talk on Twitter for the rest of the off season.
Yeah.
And let's talk more about the league, specifically the draft lottery. Joseph, I know we've kind of had this talk with you before about who you want, but who do you want?
Has it changed since the last time we talked?
I want Chet, and I want him badly. If I'm gonna be honest, like I've told myself we're getting him, and that's that. Like, so I mean, I told the like OKC group chat this a few days ago. I was like, we could be talking about Keegan Murray right now, and instead we're talking about one of the top 3. Like, I'm grateful for just the chance to have any of them. But I do think like especially with some of the reports coming out, it seems pretty obvious that like Chet wants to be. I don't want to say wants to be in OKC, but like there seems to be a very obvious connection there between the two groups. Who knows what ends up happening? Everything could just be a smokescreen, especially with like the reports that Orlando wants Jabari at 1. But like if you would have told me that 2 weeks ago that we're gonna get the number 2 pick and still get Chet, I would have been like that would have been the perfect thing
Yeah.
ever. Like
Yeah.
it's perfect in my opinion. It makes the whole like this whole past season very much worth it, especially with all the people that like kept. I sound like such a dick when I say this, but like weeping on Twitter about like what Oklahoma City's doing is a disgrace to the game and blah blah blah. Like this is how the rules are. This is the game. You have to play it. And they're playing within the game. They're playing within the rules. If you wanted to change, that's a league office type thing, you know. So
Yeah.
like till then, I have no problem with it. This is maximizing your chances at winning, and I mean, look, it ended up working out, right?
Yeah, and I mean, like you said, you were supposed to get like the 6th pick, so you have to be thrilled just that you're getting like one of Paolo, Chet, or Jabari. Just you're gonna get one of those 3, so you have to be thrilled about that.
No, exactly. And then like you have a second lottery pick that you can use to trade up. That a lot of like that's been the main topic of discussion amongst Thunder Twitter the past like month, I'd say. And so I'd say like that's the most exciting thing to me because I think there's like a hard fall around 13 and 14. So the difference between getting the 16th pick and the 12th pick was huge. And so like watching the Clippers just completely self-destruct kind of in the playing games was very much a joy to watch. Like it the whole year we had been rooting like all these we weren't rooting for injuries, but all these injuries happened. And you're like, there's no way they're gonna keep winning games. And they kept winning games somehow and kept winning games. And then like right when you give up hope, they somehow lose these 2 playing games. So like beforehand I probably would have picked them to win both of them. So that was very much a sigh of relief right there.
This reminds
Yeah.
me of 2019. It's like complete opposite. We're the whole offseason. We're like, okay, we're for sure getting Ja, Zion, or RJ Barrett, and
Oh
then
my
turns out
God,
turns out we get
bro.
Cam John. We fall all. We're the worst team in the league, and we fall all the way to like what 10 or 9. No,
Something
we
like
fell to
that.
6, and then we traded back to 10 for Cam Johnson.
Dude, I literally wasn't it you? Wasn't it you? We talked about this before, where I was
Yeah,
like, I was so ready to get Ja.
Yeah.
I was so ready. I had the jersey swaps. I had like, dude, on draft night, I was ready to order that Ja Morant Suns jersey,
Yeah.
and then we
No,
dropped to 6.
see, that's the lesson I learned last year was that none of this is guaranteed. I spent maybe all season last year. I was on Tankathon every day. I was spinning it every day. This past year, until we got the Clippers pick, I maybe touched Tankathon once a month. Like last lottery, very much like made me depressed the whole year. I'm like, oh, we're getting Cade, we're getting Evan Mobley, we're getting somebody, you know. And then bam,
Yeah.
you fall to 6, and it's like, oh, the whole world is falling, you know.
Yeah.
So that very much like changed my approach to it.
And
It's
that's
just
that expectations again.
right, yeah.
Yeah.
Expectations just set you up for heartbreak, is what I've learned. That and hope. What's that clip from like? I forgot what movie it is, but I used it all up to this like draft lottery. It's this guy's like, hope will like drive a man insane, and like that's exactly how I felt.
Yep.
So like I went into the draft lottery with like expectation that we were gonna fall, because I was like, if you have the expectation that you're gonna go up, it's just gonna be a very much a depressing few months.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that's what I said on the last podcast, Isaac, when it was just me and you. I think I said the Suns were a lot more enjoyable to just watch when we were losing so much because there was no expectation. I didn't expect anything. Like I kind of expected them to lose if anything. So it
Yeah.
just made it a lot more enjoyable and less stressful to watch. Or just be a fan in
Precisely.
general.
Exactly. I'm looking at the draft order here, and there's something on here that scares the absolute shit out of me, and it's that the Pelicans have the 8th pick.
Yep.
The Pelicans right now are in like almost the exact same situation the Suns were after the bubble, where it's you have a very good team who just, I mean, the Suns didn't make the playoffs, but we were one game out. So whatever. We were basically the 8 seed that season.
Yeah.
Pelicans were the 8 seed, put up a great fight. They have an amazing roster. They weren't even healthy. They still haven't seen them with Zion. And now they're about to go in and either add a lottery pick or maybe trade that pick for like more contributors. The Pelicans, man, like I won't be shocked if they're like a top 4 seed next season if everything goes
That's what I
right
was
for
about to
them.
say. Yep.
It will not surprise me at all.
It all comes down to Zion.
It
Which,
all
like,
comes
I
down to
think
Zion.
I think Zion not playing, like choosing not to play, not like not being injured, but like saying like I don't want to play in New Orleans, like I think that's like catastrophic for the league. Because like New Orleans, like yes, they've effed up a lot of things, but like as of late, the last year they've done a lot of things right. Like I don't see any reason why Zion wouldn't want to play with that team. Like they very much have put out a product out that like once he comes back, they'll succeed. So like having a guy that's only in his what's going to be his 4th year just be like I don't want to play here, ship me off to wherever. Like that's going to be like very much like a dangerous thing for the league and like something they'll look at the next CBA. And it's like especially for like small to mid-tier markets, it's just going to be like at this point it's going to be like almost like European soccer. Like what's the whole point, right? What being a small club and trying to compete. It's going to be even more difficult. And it's kind of annoying because like whenever you look at like the NFL, like how often do we hear about a guy just wanting to be in a big market in the NFL, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not, especially
Yeah.
fans. Like NBA fans are so obsessed with like market size. I find it so like interesting and weird at the same time. Like
Yeah.
you're not the one in that market, my guy. You're not going to be the one in LA. Like why do you care, right? So it's just one of those things where it's like if we know that like for everyone winning isn't the main goal, and I'm not saying that's not it for Zion because I'm sure he would love to be in New York and win a lot of basketball games, but it's like they're gonna have to eventually do something where like mid to small markets can't compare. If like a guy like Zion is just like, you know what, this team has done everything right, but I'm good. I don't want to be here, and I have only played 50 games or like 70 games in 3 years. Like that's a worrisome thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's crazy how, like, does Zion, let's say he, like, doesn't play for the Pelicans again. Like, worst case scenario for them, he doesn't play for them again. Does that make him a bust for the Pelicans? Like a draft bust?
I want to say no. It just makes it like something just unprecedented, something we've never seen before.
It doesn't make him a
But
bust, but it makes
Makes the
the pick a
Pelicans
bust.
look bad.
If I was the Pelicans, I'd be more frustrated. Like if you because these rumors have been going on for years before even the draft lottery happened that year. That like he wants to be in New York. So it's just like one of those things where you're kind of pissed, and it's just like you should have pulled like an Eli Manning or something. Like if you knew from day one that that's what you wanted and that's what you had your eyes set on, because now it makes it like I'm sure someone will sell the house for him, but it also puts the Pels in a difficult situation of how can we maximize this asset that we know if the asset plays and is healthy, it's a really good asset. But since he hasn't played and it's been these injuries, it's like there's going to be a lot of people that are going to try to buy low. And it puts them in this really difficult position that like it could very much be a shit show. Like I don't want to say it's similar to the Ben Simmons situation because that one was like peak toxicity and was just overall annoying, but like it very much could be like a scenario where here's a guy who has Hall of Fame potential, all NBA last year when he played, and you're getting minimal assets in return for him.
Yeah, the best case scenario for both sides would be for him to just play in New Orleans and be somewhat as close as he was before he got hurt. Because then, even if he still doesn't want to stay there, his value's gone up.
Yeah, it's yeah, he should literally just play.
Yeah.
Like just play, and then if you want to leave after next season, then go ahead. But
You'll get more money.
I hate this trend of players demanding trades like out of nowhere with seemingly like zero leverage or any reason behind it. It's
Young
happening a
players is
lot
the
in
worst.
especially young players. Like like I don't know. I just don't like it. Like obviously who am I to be like I mean if I'm Zion, it's like and I know that I'm perceived as one of the like best young talents, like potentially one of the best players in the league, depending who you ask. Um, if I'm Zion, I'm like, yeah, I feel like I should be able to get whatever I want, but at the same time, it's like we have contracts and stuff like for a reason.
Right.
And it's the whole like it happened. I'm a Seahawks fan. It happened with Earl Thomas like a few years ago, where they hold out their contracts. It's like I get it, but at the same time, like I don't like just play out the
Yeah.
contract and then leave when it's over. I hate this whole trend of where they'll sign a 4-year contract and then halfway through they're just like I'm done. Either like I don't know, man. I don't know.
And the
I don't
big
want
thing with
to.
Zion is that the Pelicans, you could tell they're trying very hard to build a good team around him, and they're pretty successful with it.
And
Because I
most
think
teams
even
don't
with
do that for their stars.
yeah, yeah, I think even without Zion, they're still with a full season of CJ, it'll be like a 6 seed, probably a little bit higher maybe. So it's like, uh, he should be pretty thankful, or he should try to play with them because they're trying their hardest, and they even got a coach like Willie Green, one of the best coaches in my
Yeah,
opinion.
the New Orleans, they did everything right. Like you said, yo.
Yeah.
So they did everything right. There just needs Zion to just decide to play. And they're going to be
It's
really good.
difficult. It's just one of those situations. Like, 'cause I think the Ben Simmons situation was the first time we've seen someone with like 3 to 4 years left on their contract just be like, like, and I think the Ben situation had like a lot of other stuff going on with it that wasn't just like, oh, I don't want to be here anymore, like the mental health stuff, and then like stuff that the coaches were saying and the teammates were saying, and it just became kind of like the 76ers were on like a character assassination tour, like it was something like that. It's like I understand that, but it's just like what does that like start for everyone else? I think that's my biggest thing. Like when people are like, oh well, Shea's gonna want to ask out in a few years. Shea has 5 years left on his contract. Like he won't have real leverage for like 3 years from now, But like this thing of like players just choosing not to play, which we haven't seen in the NBA until this past year. That is where like guys who have like 4 to 5 years, like they just signed the big supermax contract, or they just signed the max extension to get the most money, play maybe half a year, and then say, "All right, I'm good." Like
They're
that
literally just trying to rob teams at this point.
Yeah.
like I don't blame them. Like I get it. I see every side of the argument. Like okay, teams can trade players at any time without any warning. So like the players 100% like they deserve like as much type of empowerment as they want as well. But like those are just rules and stuff that they're gonna have to figure out in the CBA. And like thank God that's not my job because it's gonna be a difficult one to get like the NBA to agree to it and the Players Association. Like the next CBA, I'm very confident we'll see a lockout. Like I will be shocked if we don't.
Yeah, it's a very like you said, it's kind of unprecedented. We've never really seen anything like this before. You saw it with Kyrie. I mean, Kyrie is that's a completely different
Yeah.
you could argue that I mean, and I think my stance is that like he chose not to play, and you have the people who are like, oh, like it's his beliefs. It's the whole like vaccine thing, like it's in his beliefs or whatever. But it was a very active choice from him to not get it and not play. Like he could have just gotten it and played. So I think that was a very active choice from him. But at the same time, if you had those people who are like, oh, it's his beliefs, and if Kyrie is someone like that, I mean, obviously, like nobody knows what Kyrie's really thinking, but like if you have these players who are like, oh, it's literally like in my like beliefs, like my religion or whatever, then like, what are you gonna do? You know? Because you can't be like oppressive or, like. So it's all fucked.
Yeah.
It's a perfect way to describe it. It's all fucked.
Exactly.
It makes you appreciate players like Devin Booker even more, and Shea even like who for just like sticking around and just playing. Dame, like exactly. I love Devin Booker, even if he doesn't end up being like as good as we want him or as we expect him to be. I still love the shit out of Devin Booker for sticking around and trying to build this thing up with us instead of deciding that there was no future and leaving.
Yep.
That's what makes it so special, though, right? Is like when they stick around. Like I saw a quote. It was a video of Buck post game, from years ago. It was like after they've won like 20 games and they're like 50 something losses, and he's like, "There's something. There's gonna be something beautiful about it though in a few years." And like he was 100% right. Like there was something very cool of seeing that like meteoric rise, and like everyone starts praising the team and starts giving them the respect and just making that playoff run. Like I think we live in a society, and this goes for fans especially, where we want everything instantly, like
Instant
I mean Thunder.
gratification.
Yeah, look at Thunder fans. We've been in I have to like I'll type this out every time someone like replies my mention, like, what's the plan to lose again next year? And it's like, guys, like we made the playoffs for a decade plus. Like every franchise goes through this. If you think a rebuild is going to be 2 years, then you're living in a false reality. Like this isn't college sports. This isn't Oklahoma or Oklahoma State football, where every year you just reload and you're good to go again for the next season. That's not how professional sports work. Like we could very well be the Kings right now, like
Man.
like, and people will be like, oh, ticket sales, this and that. Like teams make the most money when they're losing. You have the lowest payroll. You get the percentage cut from the NBA's revenue. Like you're making a lot of money whenever you're losing. That's why like you see some owners who like don't actually care about winning. Like there's a reason they don't fully care. Their pockets aren't hurting when they're not winning. I think a lot of people are like under the assumption that the teams that are bad, like their owners are losing money. Like no, their owners are making lots of good money. The time they bought the team, it's an appreciating asset. It's not depreciating. Like you're set. So it's just one of those things where like I very much like support guys who stay. Like I do think like the Dame part has kind of gotten like overplayed / corny, where he has to remind us every week that he's not leaving. But other than that, like there's a level of like I appreciate guys like I see like a lot of guys right now, like a decent amount of young guys in the league that's just like I couldn't imagine that dude leaving anytime soon, which is pretty cool. Then like you get random guys like I didn't think Zach LaVine had a chance of leaving Chicago until like a week and a half ago, where it's like, oh, this is a real possibility, and that just became even more interesting.
What do you guys think will happen in Utah with Mitchell and Gobert?
I think they're gonna pull a Utah Jazz and run it back.
100%. They're 100% running it back. Unless
I
like
wouldn't
Rudy
doubt
asks out, I could see Rudy going to like being traded. But other than that, like yeah, they're running it back, which is like see like I would much rather be losing right now than be Utah.
Because then it's like the Trailblazers where they run it back with the same team every time with like a couple of new role players, lose every single time, and
No,
then
exactly.
back to the bottom.
Pick
You
one
lie to
team.
yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pick one team to be a fan. If you could pick, you have to pick between these two teams to be a fan of: Utah Jazz or the Sacramento Kings.
Kings.
Okay. I would rather be a Utah Jazz fan. Okay,
I'll be a Kings fan.
Which leads
I
me to my
follow-
next question: are the Kings the worst like franchise, or one of the worst franchises in sports to be a fan of right now?
100%. And it's
Yeah.
not even like, and I don't mean that in disrespect to the franchise. It's solely their owner. Like, he just made his daughter, without zero experience, really, the general manager of the G League team. Like, that's mind blowing. Like, teams are using G League is being used more than ever now for development. You're a young, bad team. You want to use the G League. You want to maximize everyone there. Like the fact that nepotism strikes again right there, and then everything else he does where he has to have a say in the decisions the team makes. He doesn't let the basketball people make basketball decisions is why the Kings are the Kings right now. And it's like I feel so bad for that franchise, like the fan base. Like I just
Yeah.
I saw a report the other day that was like the Thunder open. It was a BS report, but it was like the Thunder open to trading Shea for the number 4 pick, and I was like, if some idiotic thing like that happens, I've been through dumps with this team, but that might be like my breaking point. Kings have had like 10 of those moments.
Yeah.
Where it's like
They had one
the
this
reason I
season.
say-
They just traded Halliburton for like no reason.
The reason I say I would be a Kings fan over a Jazz is because the feeling of your team going from the bottom to the top is just like unmatched. and I want to experience
Dude,
that.
if you're a Kings fan, you're at the bottom forever.
Yeah, do you
It's
think there's
not
gonna
getting
be a
better.
top?
Hey, were you saying like for my whole life, or are you saying like starting now?
I'm just saying if you had to like switch teams, and you had to pick between those two,
Oh yeah, Kings then.
because it's just like, dude, the Kings, they had the longest playoff drought in the league right now, right? Like 16
Yeah.
years. The
Yeah,
last
I
time
think
they
it's
were
in
in the
all
playoffs,
professional
I was
sports.
3 years old. Like I don't even know. Half of the like most of the league was not even in the league the last time they made the playoffs. It's insane. I've never
Yeah.
seen anything. I've never seen this like bad of a mishandling of a franchise before in my short like 19 and a half years of life. I've never seen anything like this bad. It's pretty crazy to see. But yeah, what was the Halliburton trade? What was
The
that?
bonus.
Sabonis.
Like why? What was the purpose?
I
That
guess
literally
it's just
didn't.
better fit. It's just better
It
fit.
didn't make
I
either
think that
team better though.
I think they really like Davion Mitchell with De'Aaron Fox. But it's like
I don't think
I know what you're saying. Halliburton is gonna be one of the best. He's already is one of the best passers. He's gonna be like one top point guard soon.
Halliburton's going to be better than Fox shortly. I think. I don't think it's going to be that long either. It's probably going to be like 2 or 3 years.
They
Maybe.
have
I don't
some
I
know.
can
good
100%
building.
see that.
They have some good building blocks though, going into the future. But they can't mishandle all these draft picks and draft another guard again or whatever they do.
Yeah, that was a fun Kings little dunk session right there. Do we want to? I'm going to pull up the free agency class. I haven't actually looked at it yet. Are there any like big free agents?
Zach.
Yeah, Zach.
Zach LaVine?
I think he's the biggest unrestricted.
Is he a Laker? I
Russell
heard he's
Westbrook sign and
not.
trade.
I heard it's like not a big thing that he's not like he might not go back to Chicago.
Yeah,
Oh, it's really realistic chance. I think like
I
compared to
like
what
the
I
Spurs.
originally thought.
You like the
He would
Spurs
be
for?
very
I
the
like his fit.
Spurs.
I like his fit with the Spurs.
I think a Spurs is realistic. I think
I
Portland
like
is
it. He
realistic.
fits. He fits pretty good too.
It'll be interesting. Portland is super interesting to me too.
I think
I have
Portland is
a
really realistic for him.
I have a friend who's a Blazers fan, and he keeps me like updated on what they're like doing. Apparently their plan before the lottery was to keep their team like together and get a top 3 pick and try to win with Dame and like Simons and the top 3 pick. And I think they wanted Paolo. That was their plan. Their plan was to try and win a championship with that roster. That was what they wanted to do. And I'm like, well, first of all, there's no way Portland is getting a top 3 pick. It's not happening. I could have told you that from the beginning. They're not getting a top 3 pick. But also, like, isn't the best move for Portland and for Lillard at this point is to part ways?
100%. It's
Yeah, I
been
mean their plan is to try and build around Dame, but it's like, what assets do you have?
Nothing. They have nothing.
Yeah,
Simons is their best asset.
they have Simons and Josh Hart and Yusuf Nurkic. It's like you're not winning anything with that team.
But they have the Seahawks syndrome where they refuse to rebuild. It's not a coincidence that both of those teams are under the same ownership too. They refuse to rebuild. Damian Lillard is the Russell Wilson of the NBA. Hopefully he gets traded too. Like hopefully soon. I want to see that. I do not want to see Dame in a Portland jersey anymore.
I like Dame a lot, but like it's just the whole persona thing right now about not leaving and like it's become beyond corny to me.
Yeah.
Like
I agree.
it's like I hope Trailblazer fans don't listen to this, but it's like what's he gonna rap about though if he gets traded, right? Like it's just one of those things where it's like I get it, Dame, I get it, but like eventually you reach a point. It's like we reached a point with Russ eventually where it's like this isn't like. Could you imagine if Oklahoma City tried running it back with Russ after PG got traded? Like that would have been
Yeah,
like you ended off on a note where both sides are so happy and you still love each other and it's not ugly.
Yeah.
The more you keep going and going and going, there's a very good chance you hit a mark where like it's an ugly breakup, and it's just like you don't ever want to see something like that. But like I also think like at this point of Dame's career, where like if he's still trying to stay, I mean, it's now or never almost. Like maybe one more year, but after that, if you choose to stay, then like you've locked yourself in, brother. Like you're finishing. You should just finish your career there.
And I wish he would just say that he just wants to he should just say that his goal is to just play for the same team his whole career. That would be fine. That's a perfectly fine thing. But like
It's awesome.
it's the
If
it's
you wanna do that.
the it's the loyalty and like building a championship team like with loyalty, like that's a bit much. Like you're stop talking about it. It's clearly not going to happen. And
I
now
feel
it's
like
just
I feel like he does want to leave, but he just built that persona around him that he's loyal,
Yeah.
like he's very loyal. It's at this point he can't do anything about it now.
yeah.
Because
I
he'll
think he's
get
probably
clowned.
he's definitely someone who likes to protect his reputation.
But I don't think he realized that. I don't think any NBA fans, I bet most Portland fans don't care anymore. Like, we want you to go. I don't think he
Yeah.
would
See,
get
I
much
think they
hate.
want him to stay. I think they like and I don't blame them for like because if you look at how Wizards fans are with Beal, they do not rock with Beal like that. Like from like the spaces I've joined, they're ready to let that man go. It's like there's been so much what feels like malpractice by like the Trailblazers FO. Like it's been difficult, and in terms of just like non-maximizing assets in return, I'm under the assumption, I've always been under the assumption that like it's incredibly hard to build a team with a lead guard, undersized lead guard that is very deficient on defense.
Yes.
You know, and it's just one of those things. Like Steph Curry is the exception to the rule because there were two other All Stars there. They had an all-time great role players. When was the last time like that a point guard was the best player on a championship team? Like he completely led the team.
Isaiah Thomas. Like
It,
probably.
it's been a while, and so it's just
I guess Chauncey
and that
Billups if you want to
I was
count the
just gonna say,
2004
I was just gonna
Pistons.
say the Pistons, Chauncey Billups, but I'm
But I
trying
don't
to
know.
think. I
that
can think.
We ready to put
it's like, but
Chauncey
that team
Billups in the
was
same
incredible.
conversation as Steph?
But like that team was incredible, like in terms of the defensive players. Like I just maybe it's not impossible to win with the league, but it sure does make your team building have to be like even more perfect.
Yeah. Same with even with any perimeter player even really. Especially ones that rely on shooting. You look at if you just look at who's been in the who's been even in the final four, but mostly the finals, it's LeBron always. And the only time that those perimeter players other than LeBron that got in, it's like when Curry and Kevin Durant teamed up is when they finally were
Yeah.
able to do it. Kevin Durant did it one time by himself. Curry did it one time by himself. But that was with an amazing team when he won MVP and they had one of the best rosters in the game.
But yeah,
But if you
obviously,
look, it's so much easier, and it amazes me when teams the Nuggets and the Sixers keep fumbling, building around Jokic and Embiid because it should be so much easier, really. But it just keeps not working for some reason.
yeah, because when you have a guard like that, that's when you're relying on them to shoot. They're more than likely to have a couple slumps in the playoffs, and that's it right there. But if you have someone that's more dominant, they're gonna get their points. They're gonna be able to do what they do. But it's like we saw with Booker, Mitchell did it. Levine had a bad playoffs. James Harden did it for years. It's that's just how it is.
Exactly.
It feels like a very much a wing driven league right now. Like you
Yep.
have to have really good wings, and if you don't, you'll be like Utah, who's like the worst point of attack defensive team in the league, and it's not even close. Yet they
Right.
have a generational defensive anchor down low. Like you have to have wings.
For sure. All right. We've been Brandon, you see how long we've been going for? Is it telling you there?
No, I don't have it pulled up. I can.
All right. It's probably been about an hour
Yeah,
or
it's been a
so,
little
I'd
bit
say.
over an hour, I think.
Um, is there anything else we kind of want to cover? I mean, there's not really many good free agents, so it's not like we can talk about like big like league changing free
Well,
agency decisions.
just different role players for different teams. Nothing too
Uh,
big.
we can talk about Levine some other time when more news comes out about that, but I don't know how much I don't know how much Zach Levine like moves the needle really. It depends on which team he goes to.
I don't
Yeah.
think he moves the needle for many teams,
He
honestly.
doesn't.
And we're getting contradicting reports where it's like, so I just saw a report today that the Bulls want to re-sign him. Then I saw another report saying that he wants to leave. It's like
Well, I'm sure
we
the
don't know
Bulls want to
any.
resign him, but he's
I
unrestricted, so
mean,
it doesn't
yeah,
matter what they
yeah.
want.
They're saying he's ready to come back or something. I don't know. There's so many different reports coming out. We don't know any like
Yeah.
real news yet with it.
Yeah. All right, let's we can wrap it up now. We'll finish up here. Good talks. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Lena Ball podcast. Follow us on all social media. You can find me on Twitter and TikTok now. I'm posting TikToks, guys. At
Trying to get
Mikkel
TikTok
Bridge.
famous.
Arian, you want to plug anything?
Yeah, my Twitter is ArianS19.
Brandon?
My Twitter is just Brandon Adler, first last name.
Yosef, anything you want to plug?
You can follow me at ThunderFilmRoom. Gonna start like broadening out my content pretty soon, so just covering all teams pretty much.
Hell yeah, love it. All right. Yeah, that's about it. We'll thank you so much again for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Sweet, sweet, sweet.